evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Universe is mysterious, and so is human life. Basic difference between knowledge, that is jnana, and science, that is vijnana, that is vedhana jnana, is that the science explores the vast, pure, unexplored, virgin, and mysterious knowledge of universe. In fact, the multiverse. We just had a discussion about it. That it's still a metaphysical concept and ideology. We need to do a lot of research on that. The one who explores this knowledge, the one who investigates this knowledge, is a scientist. In a very scientific and you know proper investigated manner, is a person who is a scientist, and this person is respected a lot across globe. But you would be a little disappointed to know that in India, women scientists are very less. The percentage of women scientists is only 14%, which is less than half of the world ratio. World witness approximately 30% of women scientists who pursues science very seriously, and in India is between 14 to 15%, which is a very disappointing figure. We are lucky today that we are sharing time and space and this forum with one of the most eminent scientists of our time, a living legend, a particle physicist par excellence. Please join me in welcoming Padmashri, Professor Rohini Godbole. Thank you, Professor, for joining us today on Shakti Talks episode 5. Shakti is one of the most promising and most beautiful projects of University of Petroleum Energy Studies. It's basically purposes and the objective of this particular project is to empower women through research and development, through women entrepreneurship, through leadership development, and we also do a lot of CSR initiatives, so women and child related initiatives we have. So please give me the honor to introduce you and welcome you again. Professor Rohini Godbole is Padmashri awardee of year 2019. He has been a professor of theoretical particle physics in Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore. Madam has completed her BSc in 1972 from Pune University with first rank, and MSc in 1974 from Indian Institute of Technology, that is IIT, Powai, Mumbai, with first rank and Institute Silver Medal. Ma'am has completed her PhD in 1979 from State University of New York, from Stony Brook University, and DLIT from SNDT Women's University, Mumbai in 2013. Ma'am got superannuated from IISc Bangalore and is now an honorary professor at Center of High Energy Physics there. He has been a staff associate with Trisce, how do you pronounce it, ma'am? Italy.
Yes.
And okay, so, and visiting professor at University at Dortmund, Germany. She is also with CERN Geneva, and she is associated with the University in Netherlands. Most recently, she has been chairing Van der Waals University in Amsterdam and worked extensively on different aspects of particle physics for past 3 decades. And she has authored more than 300 research projects, publications. She's been elected fellow of all 3 science academies of India, that is INSA, INSA, IASC, and NASI, NASI, as well as the World Academy of Sciences. She's been Vice President of NASI Advisory Board, Oxford Research Encyclopedia for Physics, member of High Energy Physics Advisory Panel in USA. She's won numerous awards and distinctions, out of which some recent ones are, of course, the Padmashri Award by Government of India, the Distinguished Alumna Award by IIT Powai, S.N. Bose Medal of INSA for Theoretical Physics, Meghnad Saha Award for Physics of Asiatic Society of India, DST Jesse Bose Fellowship of Government of India, R.D. Birla Award of Indian Physics Association, and she has worked with pioneering a variety of programs at various fora to raise awareness on subject of women in science. She has co-edited a book called Leelavati's Daughter, which is a very, very popular, well-read, well-received book. Leelavati's Daughter, Women Scientists of India, containing autobiographical sketches of more than 100 women scientists of India. And also another book called A Girl's Guide to Life in Science, containing material to inspire young girls to take up science, life in science. This is very brief profile about you, ma'am. This is on the surface level, but we definitely would like to know what lies beneath this hard work, beneath this achievement. Please let us know about the journey of your life.
Okay, good evening again. It's a great pleasure to be chatting with you all in this very interesting Shakti program. And in some sense, you have told my journey in life. I started from a very middle class Maharashtrian family. I studied in Pune in my school. I went to an all girls school. This has some implications which might come in our conversation later. And I actually was brought up in a family which cared for education, cared for knowledge, which treasured knowledge in a very big way. And we were all actually four sisters in the family. So our family was four of us, my mother and my father. And my mother herself was, I would say, quite a strong personality. And she herself educated herself. After three daughters were born, she got her bachelor's degree. After the fourth daughter was born, she got her master's degree. And then actually, in my last year of my BSc, she also went to college to do her bachelor's in education. And that was almost on invitation because my school teacher really invited her to join the school as a teacher, but she had to do a B.Ed. So that's why I said that I was really brought up in a family which valued education, which valued knowledge. And I was, by God's grace, always a very good student. I think I always was at the top of my class, no matter which class it was, till the masters, as you said. And I think since what we are interested here is my journey in science, so I should try to tell you what are the things that really got me into science. And I would say that the first and foremost was actually because I went to a girls' school. I didn't study any science till seventh grade, but we had a very good teachers, and this was an all-girls school. Being an all-girls school, we studied science only in the last 4 years of college school, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. We had 4 years, 11th, not 10th. And then used to be a state scholarship examination. And my school students would never get it in the seventh grade because there was a paper in science. And my teachers in my school kind of said that, no, you are really quite good. Let's train you in science. So they took time off. They took time on weekends. They worked with me. Not only that, one of the maths teachers said that, okay, why don't you come home? My husband is a science teacher. So I got the scholarship. Okay, they taught me science. I got the scholarship. And in some sense, that was the beginning. And this is when I was in the seventh grade. And also in the 11th grade, in the state exam, which used to be a state level exam at that time, I was up in the merit list. I was very high up in the merit list. I won some prizes also. And then I wanted to do science was clear to me. But then there used to be a scheme called National Science Talent Search Scheme, which is like KVPY today. And now it's no longer a requirement, but with National Science Talent Search exam, we had a requirement that to get the scholarship, you had to do pure science. So you couldn't be a doctor, you couldn't be an engineer. And I never wanted to be that. So that was a good thing. As a matter of fact, when I was in the merit list in SSC, and you know how it is. Reporters come home, they take photographs, say, you have stood first in the merit list or 10th in the merit list. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do in life? And I think among the entire my class batch, I was one of the few who said that, I want to do maybe BSc, MSc or BA. And my idea was to do maybe PhD in Sanskrit or PhD in mathematics.
Wow.
But then because of this science talent examination, I got into science instead of arts.
Mm-hmm.
And then in science, actually, I think this was the beginning, because here I was from a somewhat small town. But because of this national science examination, we went every month, every year for a camp, school camp, as a science talents camp, 1 year, summer camp, 1 month. And then you met people from all over the country, other people like you. It was a group of 30 or 40. Again, in that group, we used to be only maybe 2 girls. In a group of 40, roughly, it will be 2 or 3 girls. But I think neither my friends in that group, the males or us, were really felt that there was gender. We were oblivious to the gender. And I think it was that period, which was perhaps one of the most important period, which got me hooked onto science by interaction with my peers. And then I went to IIT to do my master's. There again, I wouldn't have been able to go if I hadn't got my National Science Talent exam, scholarship, because my parents simply didn't have the money to keep me, in a hostel. And again, you have to realize that I'm talking of 1969, 1970. So it was an India which was developing India. It was an India which was a poor India. A middle class meant really middle class. Money was not plenty. So this scholarship was actually one of the big reasons why I could go to IIT. And again, in every step, this helped to widen the horizons. So I think what I'm telling you in this story is that natural, traditionally things we think help one to grow, happened in my case through these different government schemes and so on. And then I had some extremely good teachers in IIT, where I got hooked onto particle physics. And that was because I have these 2 or 3 very important teachers, one in my school, and his name I would mention. His name was Mr. Sohoni, and he's my teacher in IIT Bombay, Professor S.H. Patil from IIT Bombay. And I think it's from Professor Patil that I realized, what does it mean to do research in theoretical physics? Because theoretical physics is an abstract subject. And in my childhood, what I studied in school and so on, I don't think I even knew what it means to be a scientist. Or what does it mean to do science, like you were trying to explain. And I think this 2 years in IIT really got me into it.
Wow.
And that's it. And then I went to US, I came back. I was in IIT IFR, I was in University of Bombay for quite a few years. And then I came to IISc, and I think I have had the great luck of being paid for doing what I enjoy most. That's doing research. So I think this is my story in short. We might have to come back to some aspects.
Of course, we have to refer back life and experiences.
Which we would focus back. So I'm not telling those experiences or those points. Just now, I'm just trying to tell you the
broader picture.
Yeah, the bullet points.
Okay, surely. So when I was reading the document which was shared by you, I found this particular statement very interesting, and I thought this has to be there in my questions, that what are the excitements and challenges in life and science? So I'm putting it as it is.
Okay. Oh, see, the whole point is that I would like to describe, the process of a life of a scientist in this very simple, I think it's a very simple life, in fact, because what you are doing, and actually as a theorist, my life is even simpler than if I were an experimentalist. Let me also say that, okay? At least I think that I'm doing theory because that's what I love. So what it is, at least as a physicist, mathematician is a somewhat different story. As a physicist, as a chemist, or a biologist, what you are doing is that you are trying to understand how things around us work. A biologist would try to understand what makes a body, an organism tick. Instead of that, I would be working on what makes everything around us work. Why is a table? Why a piece of wood does float, and why does a piece of cement sink? I mean, that is what, for example, Aristotle taught us, okay? So through the centuries, we have been learning more and more about the world, more and more about the universe, more and more about the laws that govern, that cause the functioning of the universe around us. And particle physics, I should tell you, is actually in my opinion, again, but I think it's correct, is that this subject deals with what are the fundamental units of everything that is made done around us. But when you say that matter is made up of electrons and nucleus, and things are made up of atoms, and atoms make up molecules, and molecules make further bodies, like water is a H2O molecule and wood is some other complicated molecule. When we start talking like this, you have to also ask the question, how are these atoms or how are these electrons and nuclei held together? So particle physics is actually a subject of what are the fundamental constituent blocks. So what are the bricks of the universe, of the sculpture of the universe, and what is the mortar? So the question is very big. It's being asked for the last 100 years. And as a theoretical physicist, my part in the whole this thing comes that because the subject is usually very vast, a scientist chooses one particular subtopic, sub-area, and looks at this very complex question through that small window. So it's like the truth is some building, and that building has lots and lots and lots of windows. And you look at it through your own small window. Okay? And you try to understand the truth, something new about the laws of nature, about something that's happening in the universe. And the enjoyment or the joy in science is when you find one small thing which others have not thought about.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That is the excitement. Now to get there, mind you, very often you have to do a lot of donkey work. So since let me continue with my analogy of window. Through that window, you point your telescopes, you point your, sometimes you say the window is small, I have to increase my reach. So what do? I take a telescope. When I take a telescope, I can see further inside the room. So sometimes you just keep on scanning areas of this room. You don't find anything. And then, suddenly somewhere a ray of light comes. And then you find a diamond, And it is, but if you hadn't been looking all this time, you wouldn't find that. And of course, the whole point about your own choice, about your intelligence, about your intellectual tools and training goes in deciding which window I'm going to look at it through. The choice of it.
And how do you decide that window? I mean, you have multiple windows around you. Thousands and thousands.
That is the training of a scientist, right? That is where you learn to be a scientist. And the excitement is in that, as I said, the excitement is in finding that piece of diamond. But the labor is in working continuously. So if what happens is that in your training as a PhD student, and even before when you are studying a subject, one of the things that as a scientist, when you study something, you invariably keep on asking questions. If somebody makes a statement, this is so, a scientist ask the question, why do you say so? And then the process, the language of mathematics helps you, or logic, either mathematics or logic, helps you, and some experiments help you, that person, to tell you why so. And it's not always that you are having a dialogue with another person. It's a dialogue that you have with yourself. And that is the excitement and the process of science through which you go. And you have to work pretty hard. And it is during your training days. And actually, as since you was asked you, how do you decide? Some of it gets decided. Sometimes you join, it depends on what kind of science you do. If you're doing science, which is, which is done in big groups and big experiments, for example, then perhaps, you continue doing what you're doing in your PhD days, because you have to learn a lot of new tools. On the other hand, some theorist who he or she is sitting in her room is going to do something, they have the liberty and, how should I say, luxury of shifting from one subject to another, saying, I don't see anything in this window. Let me close this. Let me open another one. So theorist is slightly more lucky. But the important point is, somewhere you have to know a subject well enough so that you can then figure out, can I ask questions that are important? Can I judge if these questions are important? And thirdly, equally important, I should be able to judge whether these questions are solvable with the methods that I am knowledgeable about. Do I need to learn some new methods? And I think scientist's life is exactly this. First, find out a question that excites you. Then in your area. And how you choose that is not something I can describe. But what I can describe is that having chosen that, you have to then figure out what are the methodologies. Do I know the methodology for solving this? Or do I need to learn something new? And the great scientists are, of course, those who develop new methods to solve the problem. Most of us mortals try to find methods that are developed by the great scientists. And when I say great scientist, I mean, for theorists, it's the Einsteins, it's the Enrico Fermis, it's the Steven Weinbergs, or it's Richard Feynmans of the world. Have I given you some feeling about?
Oh, it's wonderful.
What
it's
a
wonderful.
scientist does. Okay.
It is wonderful. It's wonderful. In fact, I heard this somewhere. In fact, read it also somewhere. That's not, joy is not in finding when you reach to the goal. Joy is in the perseverance.
Joy is in the journey.
Journey. When you persevere the research journey, each day, each minute, you're focused, and that fun, that addiction of research, perseverance is more beautiful.
It's that excitement.
It's that
finally, finally what happens? Okay, I mean, at least in my case, you do a calculation, then finally you make some predictions.
Yes.
At least in my case, okay, and then some experiments come and measure the quantities you are asking them to measure, and then you say, whatever you predicted within. See, as a good scientist, you also have to be able to judge what are the uncertainties in your predictions. And within those uncertainties, do the measurements agree with what you predicted? And that is the eureka moment. And you live for that eureka moment, but you have to continue. You don't work for that eureka moment.
Yeah.
You live for the eureka moment, but you don't work for it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's so good. So how the scientific journey, the research journey has changed you as a human being, ma'am? I mean, it's so beautiful because though I'm also a researcher, not in your field, but we also do research. We are into higher academic institutions and we do our own areas of research, and it's fun and it's really interesting. We change as human beings. How this has changed you? I mean, you won so many awards, and this must have changed you as a human being. The particle physics.
Okay, I mean, awards and rewards. Let's leave them out. Because no, seriously, because you don't. Okay, let me put it this way: You don't do science for the awards and rewards.
Yes.
But of course, the awards and rewards make you happy because it makes, sort of feels that your peers, some awards at least, some awards and rewards is where your peers say, oh, you're doing something which is really worthwhile.
That's really worthwhile.
And that is the award I like most. And then there are some awards like this Distinguished Alumnus Award, which is like from my own, like mother and father. They don't quite understand what you're doing, but they pat you on the back and say, seems like you're doing something good. Or for example, I even hold Padmashri in the same place, that it's a special feeling that the country
Recognizes.
says that we like what you are doing. So awards and rewards certainly make one happy, but one doesn't do physics for that, okay? Or one doesn't do science for that. So let's leave them out from that point of view. But yes, indeed, I think if you do science seriously as a vocation, it should change you, but it doesn't necessarily change you, but I think it has changed me. It has made me, question many things always. Because as I said, when you begin your journey in research by saying, why X says this or why X is true. So I think you begin to apply that to your everyday life.
Mm.
And secondly, something which has happened particularly in my case is because I work in a subject such as particle physics, which is extremely international. And there is a lot of international collaboration and cooperation. And even today, I am working, writing two papers, one with one researcher. She is in Grenoble, another is in Vienna. Then, so particle physics is truly global. And I think that is, to me, has been one of the most exciting things. Because I have been able to work with people from all over the world, from different walks of life, from different backgrounds. And all that has joined all of us is particle physics. So for example, when I go to CERN, which you mentioned, or when I go to DESI, which is a lab in Germany, you meet people from everywhere. So for example, the Dortmund that you mentioned, my one neighbor had come from Argentina. One neighbor was from India. Then one more neighbor who had come from Belgium. So, you just have you get a very big picture of the whole world, not just the, world of physics, world of science, because even science gets done differently in different countries.
Absolutely.
So for me, the biggest way in science is, biggest gain for myself doing particle physics has been also this exposure to the world and realizing that the more we are different, the more we are the same.
That's wonderful. It sounds exciting to me. I'm sure it must be sounding exciting to a lot of students participating in this webinar. Ma'am, in my journey as a mother, as a teacher, I realized a lot of students initially would like to pursue science, but somehow they drop the idea of pursuing or studying science in between. There are multiple challenges. A lady like me who's like into late 30s or early 40s, our life cycle is a different and we drop certain things has a different meaning. But how should we as mothers, there are a lot of mothers in the seminar, should persuade or influence or motivate our children to pursue science? Because this is so exciting. It's such a beautiful world. You are showing us a different world from a different window. So how should we motivate them to pursue science?
Okay. Let me say, I would say two things. One thing is that I think learning science is very important to all of us. And that is simply because no matter what part in our life we take, whether, one becomes an administrator, one becomes a teacher or one becomes a financier, having that basic understanding and the feeling for processes of science actually teaches you a lot, gives you a logical mind. And that is helpful no matter what path in life you choose.
Follow.
I mean, you after doing your BSc or MSc, you could be doing IAS, IFS, IPS, or you could take up a IIM and become a manager. But I think what you learn by learning science truly is the logic, and that is good in any way of life.
Very true.
So therefore, you want to study science for sure. Now, doing science, I feel you have to feel it. And I would say that not everybody, if you're not, I think half of it comes from if your mind is ignited by it. And if you think it's fun, then you are ready to take all the difficulties as they come because your mind is in it, because you love it. And I think that is something I would say, and that is something only we ourselves can, the kid. So I would actually say, since you're talking of what one can tell the children, I would really say that we can only teach them to think for themselves and say that you decide for yourself what your goal is going to be and what excites you, what makes you, what would make your job not a job, not a chore, but fun. Think about that. And only the person himself or herself can do that. And once you have chosen it, stay true to it. Then don't give up quickly. Because particularly in science, doing science, I would say, the results don't necessarily always come the next day. So it's not like this ki bhai 4 दिन में the fruit will grow ripe and I will cut it खा के खत्म. नहीं होता है. कभी कभी पौधा बोके आपको पता नहीं सालों तक इंतजार करना पड़ता है, तब कभी आपको वो फल मिलता है. So as far as talking to young people to decide what is it they want to do, I would say that they need to decide for themselves what makes them tick. And that is what we should choose to do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Have I answered your question that you had?
Absolutely. And what should be the role of institutions and teachers in guiding them in this journey? First of all, persuading them to be a right, a person who should pursue the sciences in a right manner, and then should grow. And
so let me ask you a question here, because I am not sure, I'm not clear in the question. So are you particularly wanting to think about women pursuing science careers, or are you thinking of anybody pursuing a career in science?
Well, this is particularly for women, because we have good number of men doing science if we see the statistics around.
Okay, so no, because however, answers can differ.
Which is why I specifically women focused.
So because then actually I would go back even my early, because you asked me the question earlier about how one will encourage, and that I answered in a gender independent way, gender neutral way. But now if you want to specifically specialize to say the gender, women, girls, students and women. So let me try to answer that question separately, because I think that question is slightly different.
No worries. But my question basically is to what initially it was, what should be the role of the parents? Now I'm asking the institutional role and as a teacher.
No, what I'm trying to say is that the roles can be different
for gender specific.
Depending, they are very the roles right now, the way I see them, they should not be, but they're gender specific.
They are.
And that is why I would like to focus more. The earlier question that I've answered, the answer is true for independent of the gender. But now I would like to even go back and even to that first question, I would like to add a gender dependent angle to it.
Please.
Okay. So now I want to come to slightly different aspect. And I think what I would like to tell, what I would like parents and first to inculcate in the mind of a girl child is that a career in science is not written off from the beginning. If that's what makes her tick, then she should try it out. She should go for it. And should not think from the beginning, oh, that because I am a girl, because there are not that many women who continue in science, so perhaps this is not a viable career for a girl. One shouldn't think like that. That one should not let the small numbers deter. So this is what I would like to say to that young girl. What I would like to tell the parents is that while it is true that as a girl child, as a girl student, there are different aspects of one's life that one wants to do. It is not impossible to combine the different roles. There are women who have done it very successfully. And that is where we made, actually, that is why we brought out the book like Leelavati's Daughters. That's why I brought out a book like The Girl's Guide to Life in Science, to make one realize that it is possible to combine the different roles that a woman has to play. And the different roles that a woman has to play is not necessarily the most important obstacle in a woman becoming a scientist. To my mind, the real obstacles in becoming a women not being there in the number among the scientists, what you have pointed out, is because the society and girls themselves, or we ourselves, don't think that this is a respectable, a nice choice of a career. You know, choice as a doctor, yes, of course, it's very attractive. Choice as a pilot, yes, it's very attractive. So women pilots, great. And women bank officers is accepted. They can be now there. Now that is accepted. But still today, if you are asked, name 5 women scientists, 5 scientists of India, people will not get name of a woman, though there are women. So realize that this space can be inhabited by women. Yehi, that is where at the level of parents, at the level of teachers, making young girls realize this is an important thing. And for the institutions, I would say again, there are different levels. At the level of a institution, say science institution, which hires young women, I think they have to realize that this woman whom they are hiring as a young postdoc would and can legitimately hope to be a full-fledged scientist one day. Realizing that this is not a stopgap arrangement till she gets married. It's not a stopgap job. That science can be important choice as a career choice for a woman. So this is what I would answer to your question.
So beautifully. Very wonderful, ma'am. So I while reading about you, in 1974, you got your scholarship for PhD program at State University of New York, and you received a lot of support from your friends. You left 2 offers from there, from abroad, and you came back India. What exactly motivated you to come back to India and serve here?
Okay. To be honest, I'll tell you. I went abroad in 1974. As I told you, 1972 was the first time I even left my house. So 70 to 74, I was in Bombay. From 74 to 79, I was in US. I did my PhD, but it was a pretty lonely world. And I wanted to come home. It was at that time as simple as that. Turned out that it was not perhaps the smartest thing to do. Because in a scientist's life, the most important time is right after the PhD.
Yes.
That is the postdoctoral time. And since you had asked me this question, how do we decide which window to look through? It is the apprenticeship in this 5-year period, right after your PhD, after you got the degree. That is the most important. So in that sense, perhaps it was not very smart for me to come back. I should have stayed outside. I should have gotten more experience. As luck would have it, I could come back to perhaps the best institute in India that was for my subject, which was the Tata Institute. So luckily, nothing much was lost. But again, coming back to your what institutions or teachers can do, if I were my doctoral advisor, or if my student tomorrow was, going to go, especially I was in the US, I was going to come back to India. This was not the information technology enabled universe. So information was not so easy to transfer. I wish my advisor should have told me that you have a job offer here in Europe. Stay in Europe. Don't go back just now, because information and knowledge has not, even the new journals used to come by C-mail. Published journals in my subject. So I think it shows the sort of lack of interest in mentoring the future of a student. Now, I can't tell you how much of it was because I was a woman, how much of it was because I was a foreigner woman. I have no idea. But this again brings back the subject question that you asked, that how can we encourage? We have to encourage by realizing that there could be such negative, hidden negative encouragements that we give for some ununderstood reasons.
Very true.
You have to work against that.
Absolutely.
So I hope...
No, it's wonderfully explained, ma'am. It has been observed that women leave career because of sociological biases. And of course, biological biases or challenges also in between, which leads to illogical obstacles. So would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, that's actually a very simple thing to answer, actually, I will tell you. Because most of the time, whenever, I can tell you this because I have been sort of discussing this subject of women in science. I got quite accidentally into it, to be honest. I can tell you the story later on how I got involved in all this, but right now I will just go on. So whenever I would tell people that, look, there are 25%, 30% women in PhD, but only 12 to 13% women when it comes to women who are doing science. I don't, actually in India, one has to be very careful because I don't want to count the fraction of science teachers in schools or fraction of science teachers in colleges as doing science. But if you think in terms of women who are doing research, then there are in science, then they're rather small in number. And that's 15% that you told me. So the usual explanation was that the fall from 30% to 15% comes because women give up. So because balancing career and family is not easy. And particularly for a woman, as I told you, the time when you have to establish yourself and find your own window is also the time when the body clock is also ticking. So if you want to have a family, you want to have children, you have to invest in that also. But then if you have a child at that time, then you are missing out on the other clock. which is the clock of setting your own agenda in science. And agenda, I mean it in a good sense. Okay? So that actually is one of the major reasons. And people thought that once you provide opportunities to come back to science after a break, or if you provide opportunities such that the housework is taken care of by other means, a woman is, completely on equal footing with men. And I don't think that's right. And that is where this unseen biases and illogical obstacles that you're talking about come through. And they have to do with the many different small, they come up in many different small things. For example, our government of India, since again, all goes back to that one question you asked, so I can keep on referring to it. What the institutions can do to increase the number of young people who want to come to science. I mean, this is something that government has been breaking its head on it, because a country which wants to become a technologically savvy country and an innovation, want to make big progress on the path of innovation, has to have a large number of scientists in the country. And we have among the, compared to US, compared to China, per 1,000 population, we have the smallest number of scientists. So human resource development, as it is called, for science is actually a big issue. So very often the government starts, for example, the KVPY, for example, the NSTS, are all the schemes which have been introduced exactly to do that. But we need these schemes don't have a special thought about whether one needs to have some specific requirement or specific arrangement to take care of some gender issues. For example, there are these very popular things called Inspire Faculty Fellowships, which give you a 5-year fellowship, again, the postdoctoral period, till you get a faculty job, till you are trying to find your good window. And these are very good fellowships, but there is an age limit. And very often, women are essentially taking a break just in that time. So you need to increase that age limit for women. So what it means is that you don't need to only have special programs for women to come back to science after they have taken a break, but just these usual schemes for women, for scientists in general, that you have put in place to encourage, in general, everybody to do science, to participate, become a scientist. In all those processes, you should have measures which take into account the obvious obstacles that one faces due to gender. Absolutely. Some of it, it has to be flexible. For example, my own institute has a very good policy, so I will share that with you. And this is very recent, so I'm very proud of it, actually. So in our institute, after 5 years or 6 years, you can, of being an assistant professor, you apply for a promotion, okay? And you need to be assessed, your performance needs to be assessed. This is basically not really a promotion, but these are now tenure track positions. So if your performance is found wanting, you might actually not be even continued. So in these cases, again, this is exactly the time when you have to work hard, you also have to start that. So we have a policy that in case a woman wants it, in case she wants it, she can defer the consideration by 1 year for a child.
So wonderful.
For one child. Or by 2 years for 2 childs, in case. But she doesn't have to. That some woman feels that she can do everything, and some can, then very good. But those who cannot, they would be given the leeway to, so the pressure is less.
So wonderful.
And these are, again, it comes back to your institutional stories. So I'm giving you an example what an institution can do.
Very proudly, I would also like to tell you that our institution is also a very women HR policy. The HR policies are very, very women friendly, and we have crèche on the on the university, and women can, females can go there and look after their kids whenever they are free, not taking classes and not researching exactly. And in fact, when their husband-wife team working together, they can do flexi things and multiple other benefits that they can avail. And we promote such policies wherein the team can work together and do good
Okay,
job.
and that's very nice. I just wanted to add one more thing, that creche is not just for women in the staff.
Yes, it is for.
Creche is actually used, at least in the creches that I have known in scientific institutions, or in my own experience, my own nephew who was in a scientific institution, and his wife also works, and he used to take his child to the creche in the institute. So a creche is a
Yes, for
good thing
both
for a young
parents.
couple. So that is another thing that an institute and society have to understand, that all these measures have to be gender neutral as far as possible.
Gender neutral.
That they have to, it's a very tight, it's a tightrope walk. You have to take gender friendly, women friendly decisions, but it has to be done in a gender neutral manner.
Neutral banner. Absolutely. It is for basically both. It is for the team. As I said, it's a team which is working.
No, but actually, one of the things, for example, since we are chatting, for example, the government has introduced a scheme of what is called a parental leave. Now, what happens, and I have seen this very often. So, see, because in science, as I just now explained, science doesn't wait for you.
It doesn't.
So, sometimes you do not want to take a break. I mean, pregnancy break of 6 months, 3 months, maternity leave is something given. I mean, you're not talking about that, but you're talking about the time after that. And sometimes a woman may not want to, scientific point of view, not want to take the parental leave.
Quite possible.
The parental leave should be gender neutral, that either parent can take it, which it is not right now, for example. So the family, for example, would tell the woman, oh, you have this parental leave of 2 years. Why don't you take it? You are the bad person. You don't want to take care of your child. I mean, that is the thing that our families have to avoid. That childbearing is definitely a woman's function, but child rearing can be done by everybody.
It's a family affair.
So again, as you come back, again it comes back as an answer to your earlier question. What can a family do? I think I've tried to give you what can an institution do, what can a family do.
Of course.
Now the answers come back in specific context.
Absolutely. So, ma'am, we have very less time and we have to take questions from the audience also. So just, last 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll pick up questions from the audience. I cannot miss this opportunity to ask you about the books that you have edited and written, The Leelavati's Daughter and Girl's Guide. So would you like to throw light on that?
Okay, I think that's very simple actually. See, I mean, again, and it connects very easily with all the things that I've been talking so far. So what happened was in 2005 or so, we kind of said exactly what I talked to you, that if I ask a person, if I walk outside my Indian Institute of Science and ask a young girl, I go to Malleshwaram, which is where Indian Institute of Science is, and I ask a little girl or a man or a woman, name 5 scientists. So since it's in Bangalore, they would name the name of the IISc director. They would name, a few other names. You will have, say, C.N.R. Rao, you will have Abdul Kalam, or what have you. But not a single woman's name would come. And is it that really there are no women who have achieved a lot? That's not true.
That's not true.
There have been small numbers, but there have been women scientists.
Significant.
So we decided that we will bring out a set of stories of those women who worked in India, contemporary India, and they will tell their stories, what helped them to continue, what attracted them to a life in science, the question you asked, what helped them to stay in life of science, what hindered them, what did they have to overcome, what would they have been happy if they have been not had to face, and what subject that they work on, and what are their dreams for their subject or their work for future. And this is Leelavati's daughters. And we called it Leelavati's daughters because there is this famous, sort of legendary Leelavati, who's supposed to be the daughter of Bhaskaracharya. And he has addressed many of the important mathematical questions to her. Okay, I can go on, I can translate for you. Those questions are written, and we have reproduced the cover, so one page of that Leelavati on the cover of our book. Okay, so the point was that we are all Leelavati's Manas Kanya, as it were.
Manas Kanya. What sundar.
So we are carrying over her legacy. And so there are about 100 stories, and 90 of them are stories told by the women themselves. But 10 stories are of women who are no more. And it begins with one story which I find extremely heartwarming, so I want to share it with you.
Please.
That is with a story of a lady called Anandibai Joshi. She is the first medical person who got a medical degree in the US in 1800, and I forget. She died in 1885. So you can, and she died when she was 24 years old.
Oh.
Until 14 years of her age, she didn't know how to read, write in any language. And she was married to a man who was 15 years her senior, 15 or 18. He taught her at home first to read and write. And then she went to the US. She did her doctorate degree, and she did her thesis on gynecological problems of Hindu women because she lost her baby at the age of 14. So imagine, and that's where the journey of women in science began in India. And I cannot think of a more inspiring story than this.
No way. Beautiful.
So Leelavati's daughters are a collection of stories of people like this. As it happens, even my own story is there, and you can, anybody wants to read it, they can read it. It's available free on the website of the Indian Academy of Sciences.
Wow, that's nice. And how about the other book? Maybe
the other book, we actually changed a little bit the track because we said we should also tell about the science that these women did. So we took a smaller number out of the 100, we took only 25 women, and we told the stories. But then we told about the science they were doing and where are the subject going. Are these subjects still worth pursuing today? And as it turned out, almost every subject was on the front line.
Okay.
So we chose those, and those 25, the Girl's Guide to Life in Science, is more about for this girl to look at what are the different possibilities that a girl can excel in. You should not be ruling out those careers as a woman. For example, there is a story of Aditi Pant who went to Antarctica for explorations. So geology, not just the theoretical science that I sit and do in my my office, but complicated experimental biological experiments, field work, we name it. Women are doing computer science, women are doing mathematics, women are doing physics. So they are not limited by the subject, not limited by the requirements of the research in that area. And the sky is the limit. One has to just see what makes one tick.
Absolutely.
So that was the purpose of Girl's Guide to Life in Science.
Very inspiring, ma'am. I think we should all read these books to get more inspired. The wonderful people, wonderful stories, and we must buy and read them. And as you said, some of the stories are available online very freely, so all the students can go and check them out, read, and get inspired. So my request to all the audience to kindly send their questions to me, or they may also write on the question answer. We welcome your questions, please. Otherwise, I have enough questions, as you know. I've only raised a very few.
Actually, there was only one queue once that the audio was not audible, but I imagine that got sorted out.
They may write it to me. You can directly write it to me. Okay, so I received the question. Okay, I really I'm really involved in research, but I get disappointed by the results when I don't get the results which I want. What should I be doing?
This I already said, but I can repeat. Perseverance is actually the key. But more important than that, actually, I think this is where the advisors and the guidance is important. And this is what I said earlier, that you have to figure out whether the fact that you're not getting that you're, for example, I don't know whether she or he is an experimentalist or a theorist, but if something is not succeeding, research is not progressing, one has to find out what the bottlenecks are due to. Sometimes one has to turn to the experts. And it's easy to throw in the towel and say this problem is not solvable. But don't give up before you have figured out that this is not solvable within the tools and the techniques or the instruments that are available to you. Don't give it up just because you are not able to get an answer. Perseverance means two things. Just blind perseverance for years after years after years doesn't mean that's the right thing to do. But a very well-studied, intelligent perseverance means that you try to assess whether the problem can be circumvented, whether the problem can be overcome with the tools that you have available to you, with the experiments that you can do, with the techniques, theoretical techniques, mathematical techniques that you know. Is there something new that you need to learn so that you can solve the problem? And that is the way to persevere. If you are completely convinced of the correctness of the question, you have to pursue it.
Beautiful. Perseverance is the key. So we have a couple of more questions, ma'am. So one of the questions Sarah Vashishtha asked, ma'am, what future development do you wish to see in your field?
Oh, that's a rather, my field is a very interesting field because, as I said, it's no longer, the research is no longer, even theoretical or experimental research is no longer done by one person or by one lab or by one group or even one country. It's really global. So the experiments are done internationally. The facilities where we do experiments are also built internationally. They're designed internationally. They're conceived internationally. I can tell you right now, in my area, in the experimental front, the community would like to see the next thinking about the next level of the successors of the Large Hadron Collider, for example. Or the community would like to see experiments which study neutrinos. And we in India have one particular experiment called International Neutrino Observatory. I would love to see that being realized in my own area. And as a theorist, I'm a theorist who works with me and many other theorists, some of us. We work with these facilities, people who are doing experiments in these facilities. So, right now we have solved the puzzle of the Higgs boson, but it's a community, but life has to go on. We have to understand the fundamental laws of particles and, better how they help us to understand the puzzle of the universe. How do they help us to understand the dark matter in the universe? And for example, right now I'm working on what investigations need to be done to solve this puzzle of what the dark matter in the universe is, for example. So I'm spoiled for choices.
That's one of the most, that is the toughest question which has been asked on science. If you ask Google, and most tough questions that science has to answer, one of them is the dark matter thing.
But particle physics are spoiled for choices. There is a lot of things that we still don't understand. And whatever we don't understand, we have to answer. But things we don't understand is dark matter. Things we don't understand is why the universe is made up only of matter. And I think those are the developments where I wish to see, hopefully, more experimental and more theoretical progress. And the community is thinking about what experimental facilities we need to have to make those progresses.
So there are two more interesting questions I could see here. One is by Dr. Deepshikha, being a women researcher, how can we manage work-life balance?
Okay, I tried to say it, but I will repeat it again. Is that work-life balance is something that one has to do. And I agree that you have to worry about it. But that is what I tried to say. That don't try to think that it is your problem alone. It's the problem of the family. As a matter of fact, in Lilavati's Daughters, one of my contributors has written that if she had to give one message to the young women, is to say, don't feel guilty about asking for help in navigating this difficult path. Because again, childbearing is something only you can do. But rearing the child, taking care of the household, is something that you can share with your family. And the thing is not to take the entire burden on your own head. Don't try to be a superwoman, because that will not get you anywhere, because you will not be doing then good contributions either place. Or you will be not doing justice to yourself, because you will be burning the candle at two ends. So I think what one has to realize is that don't feel ever guilty about asking for help on matters such as, keeping the house or doing household chores. You should share them and convince the family that they have to be shared. That's a difficult job. I agree.
So last question I'm going to raise, because it's already 6:11 and I must respect your time. This has been asked by Marin. The life is full of joys and sorrows. What is the turning point in your life? What was the turning point in your life?
No, this is a
tricky question.
This is a tough question, because I don't know. It's a turning point in what sense I should talk about, because on the personal front there can be different issues that cause some big changes, and it's hard to, in the professional life, I think the turning point was when I decided that I know what kind of research I want to do. And once I have figured it out, I didn't let other people tell me that what I can and cannot do. I decided. And this was something that came soon after I finished my PhD, maybe 3 or 4 years after my PhD, when I finished my postdoctoral work. So in my professional career, I would say the turning point came in myself realizing that I am limited, my research is limited by my own ambition. And but again, I have to discuss with myself what I love to do, think about what I need to do to achieve that goal, and figure out also if that is an achievable goal. And that has been realizing that this is how I have to pursue my scientific career was, if you wish, the turning point in my life. I do not want to go into personal issues, because that's not something that's not something I want to share on this forum.
That's perfectly fine, ma'am. That's perfectly fine. So, however, I could see one more question, and that says that what is your secret mantra? It's your call if you would like to answer that, and
As I
otherwise,
said, my success, I think the mantra is really believe in yourself. Set your goals clearly after good thinking, and then don't waver from it. So the perseverance, belief in yourself, and have trust in others.
beautiful.
That's all.
Yes, that's very important.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to speak to you, ma'am. So inspiring, and I'm sure all the students must have got inspired by this particular talk, and they would see it again on the YouTube, and the link is available. And I thank you again for sparing so much of time for us, and we'll surely be connected for a number of things. And you're now connected to UPS for Shakti. You've been you've devoted yourself for past decades for empowering women STEM sector, and yes, it is one of our agendas also.
I
So
would be happy to do whatever I can.
thank you so much. And before we sign off, I would like to say thanks to Professor Godbole, of course, for coming and sparing time. Our mentor, Mr. Sharad Mehra, who is CEO, GUS Asia Pacific, for all his support. And Shakti is his uh, brainchild. And our motivators, our leaders, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Rai, our deans, Registrar, Madam, uh, my gratitude to Mr. Sudhir Chaturvedi, who got us connected. And thank you, Stuti, Mrs. Stuti Gandhi, and who's lead marketing, and her team. Siddharth, he's already there on the panel. Sukeshi, Selja, Aditi, Preeti, and Asia, all my wonderful colleagues. My HR leaders, Jaya and Monica, for always being so supportive and kind towards uh, me and this particular project, Shakti. And a lot of love and respect to my Shakti buddies, Shakti mates, and team. And thank you so much, all the students and participants, for coming here and being here with me and with ma'am and learning a lot through this journey along with us. Thank you so much. Ma'am, we'll be connected again. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye. Take care. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, ma'am.